First of all, I'm Diana Lake, a physician, emergency medicine physician. I am also a fitness and nutrition coach. So that I actually transitioned to this year, doing independent contracting in emergency medicine and running my fitness company. So that's the immediate thing that I've changed. But as far as in my household, we're actually transitioning as well. We had a nanny for 2 years, I think, about 2 years, and we actually are transitioning to someone new because a lot of things have changed in her life, and so she has to move on. And so that has been interesting for the boys because they've gotten very used to her. And so we went through the process of interviewing, and we found someone who's going to be starting on Monday. Yes. So um, first we told both of the boys, that our nanny was going to be leaving. We told them that, she needed to move to a different position because of other things that were going on with her. And that there was nothing, that they did or, to just to let them know, hey, everything's okay. But Candy is just going to come on the weekends to babysit you guys from time to time, but she won't be here every day. So we had to kind of let them know, this is going to be what's coming up next. So Tom does really well if he knows in advance what's coming up. So, yes. So if you prepare him, you tell him what's expected, then he can kind of prepare himself for what's coming. So it's really good to let him know ahead of time what's going to be happening if there's a change, especially if it's a change that he may not particularly like. Okay. So basically, I've seen him from when he was at the lower end of the spectrum where he really needed a lot of support. So we've kind of graduated, over time to where we are now. So there have been different ways of dealing with him at each of those stages. So when he was practically not really speaking, I mean, there was, when he was 2.5, 3, he lost a lot of his language. That's when we actually got into figuring out what was going on with him, was when he started to regress. So there was a different approach there, was basically trying to pull things out of him, because he was really gesturing a lot and not really using his language. And so at that point, it was getting questions, giving him questions that would allow him, just open ended questions that would allow him room to say whatever it was that was on his mind, whatever his emotions were, so we would actually give him open ended questions as opposed to just asking yes and no questions to kind of allow him that freedom to say whatever it is that he could get out of him. So that was then. Now, where he's very vocal, he's very verbal, he's even at the point of initiating conversation, saying how he feels. At this point, I'm directing the conversation as opposed to just trying to get him to speak at all. So at this point, when he asks me a question, I answer in a way that would allow him to ask another question or, just to engage him so that there's a continuity and a flow in the way we talk. So when he's challenged, usually now when he's challenged is because he doesn't want to transition to something less preferred, right? So if he's playing a game or he's doing something that he really enjoys, he really wants to stay there. And he could stay there for half an hour and literally be that focused on it. If you say, hey, Tom, it's now time to go and do a lesson, or it's now time to do something else that he's not really particularly, care to switch to, then you get, why do I have to do that? I don't want to do that. So then he starts to whine and that kind of thing. And then I just have to remind him what the rules of engagement are. We have rules that we follow. So basically, I'll start to tell him, remember, you had only 20 minutes on this activity, and now your 20 minutes are up. And so the rules are, we're going to go to this other thing. So, and he's so compliant. Praise the Lord. I mean, he wants to please. So that's a saving grace, is that he wants to do what he's told to do. So that helps a lot. There are times when he'll just be literally belligerent and just, I'm not doing it, and he's set on that. Then we have to go back to, okay, you've got 3 choices. You can either do this, what we've talked about, and then, you'll get your reward at the end. Or if you don't do it now, this is the consequence. So I basically give him options. If you continue on this path, this is going to be the consequence. And the consequence is going to be something that he's not happy with. Either he's going to lose a privilege, or he's going to go into timeout, or something like that. So he does not like any of those options. And so quickly he kind of self-corrects at this point. He can actually self-correct and say, okay, let's wheel this back, and usually we'll get to some kind of agreement. And so that's kind of how we deal with his challenges at this point. If he has a total meltdown where he's just, which is pretty seldom for him, where he just completely loses it and he's rolling on the floor and it's like nothing you can really do, I actually let him roll.
You ignore those.
I just let him go through his little thing. It's pretty short lived typically. So he'll do that. And then I said, are you ready to breathe? You have to kind of have self-control yourself to be able to go through it. Because if you get to the level where he's crazy and you're crazy and everybody's just, kind of losing it, then obviously who's going to control it, right? So somebody kind of has to step over everything. So I had to learn. I was very impatient before all of this. I was just one of those people, you either got me or you didn't, and I kept it moving. I had very low tolerance for, being able to deal with something that just wasn't working. So with Tom, it just became a blessing in disguise that with learning to help him, I actually started to develop skills within myself as an adult to just be more patient with people in general. It's definitely challenging. I would say it's definitely challenging because there are times that, I have to change appointments if something, comes up with him that we need to address. So then I have, I basically have to, I obviously attend to him if there's something, maybe the school calls, and says, hey, this happened or that happened, or hey, we need you to come because of, we ran out of clothes, or whatever it is, maybe he made a mess, or, something happened at school and that has to cause me to change my schedule. I do what I have to do. And if I have to tell someone, hey, I need to reschedule, that's just what I do. As far as running the business, I think I have a little bit of, because I have them every other week, the way our custody arrangement is scheduled, I have them every other week. So with me not having them on alternate weeks, I really pack a lot of my business in the weeks that I don't have them. So that helps a lot. I'll do all of my planning for the next week when they're here during the week that they're not here. So I sort of plan ahead all of my postings for social media, a lot of what I'm going to do that week when they're here, I plan ahead of time. So that's what helps is the planning, putting things on the schedule. If it's not on the schedule, it probably won't happen. My schedule is like the Bible, everything goes on the schedule. I work around my schedule with the kids. So if I have to go to an ABA session, or the ABA sessions are actually here. So if I want to be here for the ABA session, I work around his schedule. If I want to be at speech, I try to go to speech at least once or twice a month with him. So when he goes, I want to be there. I want to see what's going on. I want to talk to the therapist, so I include that in my schedule. So basically all of the extra things I have to do with him goes on my schedule. Just like my dental visit or any other thing I'm doing with my business, my clients, everything goes on the schedule. So that's how I keep it all in order, is I get it on the schedule and it's there like an appointment. So this way nothing else can interfere with it. Otherwise it gets forgotten or I end up double booking and then it's just a mess. So the schedule is like gold. So it has to be on there. Oh, wow. Academically, he's doing great. He's gotten a bunch of awards for his reading. He reads really well. The issue we're having with his reading is you wouldn't know if you hear him reading because he actually is reading first grade, second grade books, and he's only in kindergarten. So his reading is I mean, awesome. But his comprehension is where he's lacking. So he reads what he sees on the page really well. I mean, even like he'll have the emotion to go with it. When the person, the character is excited, he's excited. He does all of that well. But comprehension, if you asked him, "Hey Tom, so do you remember what happened in the beginning of the story?" and you go back to that, his recall is not that great. So his recall in the story, he can recall things in general. When you walked in the door, he remembered you, right? So he remembers things in general in his life. But when you're reading a story, he's having issues with recalling details in the story. He's having a challenge right now with just reading comprehension. So that's part of his ABA. That's part of what he's working on at school. That's part of what he's working on in speech. So we basically have been finding where he's still having challenges and focusing his therapy only on those things. So there are a lot of things he does well already. We're not going to, keep focusing on the things he's already doing well. So right now, his reading comprehension and just being able to pull details out of a story and actually retell the story are things with academics that we're working on. His math, you saw him doing some stuff on the iPad. His math he's doing really well with that. Addition, subtraction, comparisons, patterns and all those things. He really likes doing them. So he's doing really well with those. So the biggest challenge with him right now is the comprehension, recall, being able to retell the story. And then also, what is the other thing we're working on? Behavior. So the big piece with him is behavior. Just when he's in situations that he's not, that are not preferred, things that he doesn't want to do. If you tell him to go brush his teeth, he doesn't like to do it. And now that he has one loose tooth, he doesn't want to do it at all. He's like, my tooth is going to come out. So when he doesn't want to do something, then he will push back like any other child. So we're working on those behavioral things. Also just safety. That's another big thing we're working on with him is his personal space and also just spatial, safety with other people. When he gets really excited, like if he's at a party and he gets really excited, he starts to run around and he'll actually run into other kids and not recognize that he just pushed them over, because he doesn't have that boundary. So we're working on that as well. It's just teaching him how to understand safety, boundaries, and things like that. So those are the areas where he's struggling right now.